Welcome to the Power to Be show. We are honored that you decided to tune into our broadcast. If you missed the last episode, the focus of Power to Be is to inspire congregations to see more deeply the relationship between Sunday worship and the work week by discussing how faith informs the work we do, and the work that we do defines our faithfulness to a purpose-driven life. On this episode, we are discussing entrepreneurship, faith, and the single mother. I am Alexis Hunter, your co-host for today. I'm also the owner of the Camille Collection and Life Graphics Group. I'm the mother of two, Caleb and Naima. And I also serve faithfully at Living Word Christian Community. Before we get started, we would like to thank this episode's sponsor, Living Word Christian Community, where Dr. Terrell Bird is the lead pastor. We're located at 2390 South Military Trail, West Palm Beach, Florida, 33415. Our worship service begins each Sunday at 10:30 a.m. in person, on Instagram and Facebook Live.
Hello, Alexis. We are so happy that you are going to be one of our interviewees. In fact, it's exciting since you are a co-host with me, and to be able to talk about someone who is already doing what we want to do, which is to inspire people to engage this idea, this concept of the integration of faith and work. And I think you represent that. You do it very well. So I'm honored, first of all, that I'm able to speak to you about what you're so gifted at doing. So what I want to do today, and to our audience, I want you to know that what we want to do is to be inspiring, encouraging to you, so that you can see the value of what we do in terms of faith integration of the work we do. So I want to talk, first of all, to ask you a few questions, and we can make this a conversational experience. But I want to ask you, what has been your greatest inspiration for this giftedness of creation that you possess?
It's funny because it wasn't initially like I set out, oh, I'm going to start a business, or, oh, as ideas come and are deposited, I am able to take that and be able to make it into a business. I believe I've always had a business ever since my daughter was young, probably since about the age of 2 or 3. I've had businesses, and it's funny how some things come full circle, because I was doing a little bit of graphic design back then, and then I stopped because I was like, I in my mind, it wasn't to the caliber of where others were. So I took a break from it, and now to have come back to it after doing some learning and growing, I was able to take that and be able to help others, whatever it is, whether it's creating a logo, whether it's developing a website, whether it's making masks, whether it's whatever that person's vision is, being able to see that come to life.
Okay. I know that some of the work you've done has been work that involves seamstress in terms of designing clothes and things like that. So you're still doing that as well, right?
I'm still doing that, and my children were the inspiration for that. My grandmother taught me how to sew, and they don't teach what is home economics.
Yes,
they don't teach that anymore.
Yeah. We took something called, the guys took like family living and the girls took home economics. I don't know if that was sexist or what, but yeah.
Everybody should have had the same thing, but I also took woodwork.
Okay.
But in learning how to sew, my daughter needed a skirt for a project, and she was supposed to dress as if she was from Ethiopia. That was her school project. And so I'm like, okay, I've made pillowcases. I've made doilies. Never made a skirt. So that skirt, I've looked at a pattern, figured out how to do measurements, and it just grew from there. Wow. So when I posted, her with her skirt, and then I made a matching headband, and people were like, oh, well, can you make a skirt for me? Can you make a skirt? And that's usually how my business has grown, because of people seeing and making requests.
Okay, that's good. Well, let me ask you another question that relates to the faith integration, because I just need to know, and I want the audience to appreciate this, is what role your faith has played in your business world.
So first off, for me, I look at everything that I do has been a gift from God. Whether it's my talent or gift or whatever, it's all been from God. Without him, I'm pretty much useless. So I realized that. And so anything that I do, before I design any piece of clothing, before I create a logo, even when I'm discussing with my clients what their vision is, I usually leave off and I'll say, I'm going to pray about what we've discussed and see what God gives me. I never want to give anything that is less than or not up to par. So I take that very seriously before when I'm creating a new design, whether it's clothing or a mask, graphic, website, what have you, I do pray about it.
Okay.
And the ideas they come.
Yeah.
So faith is very important in terms of what I'm giving, because it's from my heart.
Right. And it seems to me that, and I often say this, that when people have giftedness, that they ultimately understand the source of the gift, and which is, you sense that God, or that God is the one who has gifted you, and therefore he ultimately gets the glory. What I would want to help the audience to see is that even in the midst of your giftedness, that does not mean that there are not some challenges that go along with it. Now, you've already said that you are a single mother of two.
Yes.
And so being a single mother, which in and of itself is a huge responsibility, what kind of advice might you give to other single mothers who may also have a desire to be able to go into some kind of business adventure, a small business of some type? How would you advise them with being a single mother and working and all these other challenges that come along with it?
One, pray about it, and make sure that is the direction that you're being led. Two, find balance, because in order to juggle work, especially if you're working a full-time job, which I do, working a full-time job, being a mom, being an entrepreneur, it's a lot. So finding that balance. But I would also say involve your children. My son is 7 and my daughter is 15. And both of them have been involved in every aspect of what I'm doing now. Maybe not the graphic design piece, but I've also, I've taught my daughter the importance of entrepreneurship, but it's good to communicate to your children why you're doing what you're doing. Good.
I like that. In fact, let's just take a pause for a minute to just talk about your daughter and your son, because I know that your daughter has also become a little bit of an entrepreneurial endeavor in her own life she's done. Can you talk about some of the things that your daughter has done, as well as lately I've seen your son developing some culinary skills.
Yes.
So talk about that for a minute.
So my daughter had a science fair project, and she chose lip balm. And so I'm like, okay, well, the science behind it, and we went ahead and she did her project, and I said, is this something that you would want to do? Because this lip balm is pretty nice. The recipe that she came up with, it was smooth, it lasted, and I was like, is this something you would want to do? And she was like, yeah. So being me, I came up with a logo for her, registered the business with SunBiz, and came up with all of that. She decided on which logo she wanted. We came up with packaging, and she started selling her lip balm. And then she ended up doing the body scrubs. She came up with that recipe and what to include. And so, in our research and trying to see what health benefits certain oils are and things like that. So that was fun for her. And then even creating her website, her little shopping website to do. So that was good. And entrepreneurship is not for everybody, but at least you can say, you know what, I tried this, and you can see what you liked about it, what you didn't like about it, and go from there. Yeah. But my son, that all started because I wanted a slice of lemon pound cake. So I found this recipe for a lemon pound cake, and Caleb, who's 7, helped me the first go around. And I said, but we can make it better. So we started tweaking the recipe, but now he gets on the step stool and he can pretty much do it all, cracking the eggs without getting eggshells, the measurements. So that's something that we do together. And so pretty soon he's going to have a little bake sale, but he comes up with these ideas of what he wants to do.
Yes.
I think for Christmas, we did the little mini bundt cakes, and he said, but I want them to have Christmas colors. So we dropped food coloring in it, red and green, and swirled that, and he took it to school.
I just think that it's fascinating because I think what has been lacking, particularly in the minority community, and particularly in the marginalized, often underserved community, is the ability to pass on the generational knowledge. And I think what I hear you saying is that you're passing on the knowledge of what you have to your children so that they will be able to be productive. Yep. And to use their gifts in a very positive way. I think that's wonderful. So I think as you continue to work with your children, you're inspiring them to also to be a blessing to others. So I think that's wonderful. So in terms of being a single mother, you said one of the things is to involve your children. Yes. And I think that's important. What about the challenges of working another job, and how might you see that job also playing into this integration of faith? That might be something we want to talk about.
So my full-time job is mentally draining because I take very seriously the gifting that's been given to me, and so I'm learning the there's a fine line between excellence and perfectionism.
Okay, all right.
So I know it won't be perfect, but I do strive for excellence in everything that I do. But it is challenging in, when you come home and you're tired, not necessarily physically, but you're mentally drained, and then you still have homework, and you still have you might have orders. So that's why I stressed on balance, because it can be tiring and it can be exhausting. But I try to never let it get to a point where I become resentful in what I'm doing. And if I'm finding myself approaching that place, I try to take a step back and just allow things to kind of settle before I move forward. But even on my job, my full-time job, people notice there's a difference. I work for a government agency, so, we can't really talk about religion or politics or things like that. But by how you treat people, by how you care for the work that you do, says a lot about who you are.
Yeah.
And I think people are drawn more to you based on what you display versus what you say.
Yeah. I think that's true. And I think that is a way to integrate your faith with the work you do. It is that there are certain godly virtues.
Yes.
There are principles, love, respect, kindness, things, patience. Yes, patience. Things that are so important to living in a civil society.
Yeah.
And so that when you do that on your job, that is also displaying that. Let's talk a little bit about some of the challenges, but also some of the stresses of being a business owner when you're starting to feel overwhelmed. Talk about that a little bit.
There have been times where I've taken on quite a bit in my service and work and the children and entrepreneurship, and it's I have literally had to step back and scream.
Okay.
Because I was just so there. Okay, so there's this movie, Inside Out. It's a kid movie, and it talks about the different emotions. And then there's the red guy, and he's just goes from 0 to 100 really quick. That has been me. I will cry just to get it out. But then I have to remind myself, Alexis, you were given this for a reason. I struggle with the scripture, to whom much is given, much is required. Because there are times where I'm like, God, I know you didn't require all of this. I know you, yeah. But then it's like, okay, there has been so much. My friends joke and they'll say, is there anything that you can't do? Yes, there's a lot that I cannot do, but there's just been so much that has been deposited into me. And so I have to remind myself, I got to pray. Okay, let me get my focus back. Let me recenter myself. I'll listen to music. I am a worshiper.
Yeah.
But that's what kind of helps me get centered.
Yeah. Because I'm sure that the very nature of what you do, with the amount of things that you do, and I know that there are some timeline deadlines that you have to do. So talk to the audience about some of the spiritual disciplines. You say you worship, you pray. Things that help you to be able to, I use the word cope, but to create balance. Those are the things that I think are so important that people should understand.
I think perspective is also important, putting things into perspective. I utilize my mom quite a bit, just to kind of, when I'm in that place of frustration or feeling resentful or just overwhelmed, a lot of times, yes, I will listen to music, I will pray, but I'm still just like wound really tight. I'll lean on my mom quite a bit to pray with me and to speak into me, because you need that. You need to have somebody who can speak life into you.
Sure, yes.
That's having someone outside of that, to bring you back to, okay, this is why I'm doing this. And you have to always remember your why.
That's good.
If you forget the why, then it becomes it becomes a no.
Yeah.
And it becomes, I shouldn't be doing this.
Sure.
You start to second guess yourself, but remembering your why. And so even with getting started, you have to know your why.
Yeah.
I don't care if you put it on a mirror or somewhere where you will see it in your workspace. I even have affirmations or words of encouragement at work of who I am and who God has, created me to be. So I have that as a reminder, because I get frustrated at work too.
Yeah.
So I have to remember who I am and my why.
Yeah. Yeah.
And what's been given.
Yeah. And that's a part of life.
Yeah.
I think that the very fact that you recognize that there are points, there are times that things can get a little unwielding. So it's good for you to know that. And I think that that's a healthy thing for our audience to know, that if you launch out into this entrepreneurial world or this small business world, that the expectation is that, yes, as much as it is good and good can come out of it,
Right.
there are also some times of frustration and maybe even discouragement. So you just have to keep pressing forward. Yeah, good.
I know, I will say this for single mothers. Your kids are not going to always, I don't want to give the impression that, involving your children makes them gung-ho and accepting of you taking on this role, because there are depending on what your entrepreneurial creation is, it may or may not involve your kids. And so that's time away from them. And them understanding, depending on the age, they may or may not be understanding that, okay, well, mommy is doing this, but they need to know your why too. But involving and being open and communicating, because it can be time consuming.
Well, I want our audience to appreciate not only what you do and how you inspire others, including your children, but I also want you to talk about what is your ultimate goal as a business entrepreneur.
So I've thought about that. I just enjoy doing what I do. I enjoy the flexibility. I enjoy, when the ideas come and I'm like, oh, I could do this. That I've wondered, could I do entrepreneurship full time and leave my job? Don't know. Because once you do that, then it's like, okay, this is really grind mode,
Sure.
If I'm getting rid of one salary and I need to be able to supplement what I was making in order to, because reality of it, you have bills. So my ultimate goal, I just want to help other people. Okay. It's not to be a millionaire. That would be, I don't know if that would be great or not, because, more money, more problems. I don't know. But I just want to be able to utilize my gifts to either help others or inspire others.
Okay.
And coming from a line of entrepreneurs, my mom was an entrepreneur, my grandfather was an entrepreneur.
So it's part of your family makeup of who you are. Yeah. And I think that the other part of that is that when you're an entrepreneur, and particularly when you're developing these, there's always risk involved, because I'm sure that along with the successes, there have also been some failures or losses that you have learned from. Has anything been for you that kind of moment or that kind of experience that just pulled you back and going, oh, I need to do it another way?
Oh, I've had many of those. So, in the beginning of doing logo design, I would do all this work and I would not require a deposit. I wouldn't require this. And then I've had people to say, oh, well, no, I decided to go another route. But I've spent money and time that I can't recoup. With making clothes, I realized without a deposit, I can't go shopping for fabric. So it's all about, can you afford to do it? Because you're going to put up money up front.
Sure.
And then you have to be okay with, there's a possibility I may not recoup all that I've spent. I would like to break even. But in the beginning stages of entrepreneurship, it's rough.
Yeah. So
until you figure out the formula that works for you.
Sure. Yeah. Well, there are a couple of things that I think are important that you just said. One is that you've got to figure it out. That's going to be what's going to work best for you, right, and so that you're not going to suffer unduly loss. The other thing I think that that needs to be stated is, with every entrepreneurial endeavor, with every small business pursuit, it's an investment.
Correct.
And it's an investment of your time and of your talent. Yes. And of your treasure.
Correct.
Right.
A big investment.
A big investment, yeah.
And I'm glad you said that, because I was thinking about, as it relates to our faith, I give a lot of my time, my talent, and my treasures also to my church. And it's not just about money. If, let's say, a person is an accountant and you're a member of a church and you're not a part of the finance team, why? If you are a graphic designer and you cannot help with the infrastructure as far as like the logo or the website, or why? If you're a baker or a chef and you don't help in the culinary department of, like, I feel as though every gift that you've been given is not just necessarily for you to have your hand out to get money, but you should be building up the kingdom with that as well.
Yeah. That's good, because so many times people, they compartmentalize and they don't see their life work as something that can help to minister.
Right.
And not understanding that we all are ministers. Yeah. We all have a gift, yes, and therefore we ought to be using it for God's glory. Well, we really appreciate having Miss Alexis Hunter to share her story, particularly her story of the integration of faith and works through her entrepreneurship. That's why this is such an important show. We want to be able to emphasize the power to be, because you can be anything that God has called you to be if you first believe that you can do it. And part of the reason that we engage in entrepreneurship and small business enterprise is to say that our work week is just as important as our Sunday worship day. We can worship God through our work. And the minute we begin to see our work as a part of our worship to God, then we will have not only a greater appreciation for the work we do, but also because it will express our love and appreciation to God for what God has gifted us with. So we want this show to be an inspiration, to be an encouragement to so many of you who have not really thought of the work that you do as a part of ministry. And it is. It is a part of the ministry that God has given you for his glory. So we thank you for being a part of our show today.